The World Economic Forum projects that by 2030, artificial intelligence and the green transition will displace 92 million jobs, while creating 170 million new ones, resulting in a net gain of 78 million positions. This chart shows optimistic job growth running parallel to a tightening concentration of wealth. The net job count is plotted against the Gini coefficient, a statistical metric used to measure income inequality within a nation. Recently, the U.S. Gini coefficient climbed from 0.380 to 0.410, marking a severe polarization in wealth distribution. Concurrently, the labor share of national income, the portion of economic output paid to workers as wages rather than to owners as profit, has dropped from 66% to 58%. If new technologies are generating tens of millions of new jobs, the working class should be capturing a larger fraction of national wealth than the data currently shows. The data identifies artificial intelligence as a mechanism for the structural reorganization of human labor, shifting how work is valued and compensated across the economy, regardless of total employment numbers. To understand this mechanism, we have to abandon the mid-century view of industrial automation. Historically, we pictured automation as a physical force that swapped human bodies for machines on assembly lines. Modern labor economics, particularly the framework developed by economists Daron Acemoglu and Pasquale Restrepo, approaches work differently. Their model shows that algorithms do not target jobs as monolithic entities. To measure the true economic impact of generative AI, we have to look past the broad job titles and zoom in to the microscopic level of individual daily tasks. This diagram breaks down a standard middle-class knowledge role, like a financial analyst, into a vertical stack of discrete component actions. The base of this stack consists of routine, codified tasks. These are rigid, rule-based actions like data entry, scheduling, and basic reporting. The top of the stack consists of tacit tasks. These require high-level strategic judgment, complex problem-solving, and interpersonal empathy. Automation triggers the displacement effect. Capital, deployed as algorithmic software, substitutes for human labor precisely at the bottom of the stack, absorbing those codified tasks. Simultaneously, the reinstatement effect occurs. Technology generates new, highly complex requirements at the top of the stack that only human cognition can navigate. By reorganizing a worker's daily utility task by task, AI creates the specific economic conditions required for aggressive wage suppression. Economists track this suppression through the loss of wage rents. The wage rent is the historical premium paid to workers because their specific duties were too complex for previous generations of machinery to execute. These difficult tasks acted as operational bottlenecks. Corporations were forced to pay higher salaries simply to secure the human cognition required to clear them. As this diagram illustrates, generative AI specifically targets and solves these high-rent cognitive bottleneck tasks. Generative AI refers to algorithms capable of producing text, code, or analysis based on vast datasets. When a bottleneck task is successfully automated, the mathematical consequence is immediate. The wage premium is destroyed. That evaporated wage rent transfers directly into the corporate margin. This mechanical process, known as rent dissipation, accounts for between 50 and 70% of the changes in the United States wage structure over the last 40 years. The demographic impact of this exposure was mapped in the 2025 GenAI Index published by the International Labor Organization, a UN agency that tracks global work standards. The index reveals that clerical and administrative support roles remain the most acutely exposed to rapid rent dissipation. Because of occupational segregation, this exposure is highly gendered. In high-income countries, 9.6% of women work in roles facing the highest category of AI automation risk. By contrast, only 3.5% of men face that same level of vulnerability. Rent dissipation operates as a silent wealth transfer mechanism. It hollows out the middle class by systematically siphoning the value of cognitive labor upward to capital owners. The generational consequences of this shift depend on how the market values codified knowledge compared to tacit knowledge. AI acts as a direct, near-zero-cost substitute for the codified textbook knowledge possessed by entry-level workers and recent graduates. This diagram shows the resulting dynamic. While AI replaces the junior worker, it acts as a force multiplier for the senior professional's tacit knowledge, generating a massive experience premium in wages for those already at the top. Corporations are deploying these algorithms to bypass the cost of training junior staff entirely. We see this structural change in current labor data, which tracks falling job finding rates for professional workers under the age of 25. By destroying the entry-level stepping stones required to learn a profession, algorithmic substitution threatens long-term intergenerational mobility and guarantees a future crisis of senior-level expertise. With so much task automation occurring across the professional sector, we must examine why advanced economies have not yet experienced massive unemployment spikes. This chart displays the OECD population pyramid, nations with high-income economies. Their data projects the old age dependency ratio will climb to 52. The global south is facing a youth bulge, with millions of young workers entering the labor market each year. These low-income nations face insurmountable barriers to AI adoption, defined by the 4 C's: a lack of connectivity, context, competency, and compute, the massive physical data center infrastructure required to run modern algorithms. In many developing nations, a new global digital labor class is emerging, performing precarious, low-paid microtasks like data labeling to train the algorithms utilized by high-income countries. This severe infrastructure gap threatens to reverse decades of global economic convergence, triggering a divide economists refer to as the New Great Divergence. A labor-light economy eventually forces a reckoning at the level of national governments and fiscal policy. The vast majority of traditional government revenue relies on taxing human wages, payrolls, and consumption. This flowchart visualizes the resulting structural deficit. Capital and algorithms are currently generating immense taxable value without paying income tax or requiring Social Security contributions. To plug this fiscal leakage, policymakers are proposing macroeconomic interventions like a robot tax or automation-adjusted corporate taxes. In 2017, Bill Gates laid out a foundational argument for this policy, suggesting that we should tax robotic replacement at the exact same rate as the human labor it displaced. The robotics and technology industries counter this proposal. They argue that taxing the means of production stifles innovation, reduces overall productivity, and damages global competitiveness. The survival of the social safety net depends on rewriting fiscal policy to capture the wealth generated by automated capital. Structural tax reform is required to ensure the efficiency gains of the AI revolution fund human prosperity rather than human obsolescence.